Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. My name is Hamid Slimi and I'm your host for this show. We've been discussing many times different topics relating to Islamic principles and precepts. And one of the topics that we hear sometimes in Friday sermons or lectures, as a reference, people go back to the final message of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that is known as the farewell sermon. That sermon was delivered on the Mount of Arafat at the last pilgrimage that the Prophet did on the 10th year. Just before he died, a couple months before, he delivered that historical message. Scholars like to go back to this message that the Prophet, peace be upon him, delivered and try to extract from it many principles. Why would the Prophet, peace be upon him, summarize all these principles in this message? Scholars are saying because that was, of course, his last message, but also the audience that was there is the largest, or was the largest audience the Prophet, peace be upon him, addressed. It was the pilgrimage and it was the day of Arafat. The day of Arafat meaning the largest gathering of the pilgrims. And that was the pilgrimage that the Prophet, peace be upon him, led as a prophet, and that was the last pilgrimage before, of course, he died, and that was actually the only pilgrimage that he did in the phase of Islam. Now, the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he addressed thousands of people, according to historians, they were tens and tens. Some go to count that the numbers were around 120,000 people were present to listen to that message. Scholars are saying that what we will read soon of the message of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was a very short message, yet very inclusive, comprehensive of the major precepts and principles of Islam. Now, of course, we will read in the next few minutes this message, and I will make some brief comments. So let's read first what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. He said, "O people, lend me an attentive ear, for I know not whether after this year I will ever be among you. Therefore, listen to what I am saying to you very carefully, and take these words to those who could not be present today." Notice here, the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reminding people that he might not be here. As a prophet, he has an indication from heaven, as all the prophets are receiving revelation. He's telling people, I may not be here, preparing people that, of course, even him, the prophet, will die, and of course, what is remaining after him is knowledge and revelation, the Quran and the Sunnah, the teachings that he left behind him. And also he's telling people to deliver the message to those who were not present at that moment. And then he goes, he says, "O people, just as you regard this month, this day, this city as sacred, so regard the life and property of every Muslim as a sacred trust. Return the goods entrusted to you to their rightful owners." Now he reminds people of the sacredness of life in general, and of course the relationship between Muslims. Muslims now were building a community. They cannot go to the world and talk about the principles unless they practice among themselves the very principles of trust and respect among themselves. And then of course he goes, "Hurt no one so that no one may hurt you. Remember that you will indeed meet your Lord, and that he will indeed reckon your deeds." This, of course, reminds us of the golden rule: do to others as you would like them do to you. So don't hurt people, so you can't or you won't be hurt by others. And then he goes again. After reminding people of the day of judgment, of reckoning, he says, "Allah has forbidden you to take interest. Therefore, all interest obligations shall henceforth be waived. Your capital, however, is yours to keep. You will neither inflict nor suffer iniquity. Allah has judged that there shall be no interest, and that all interest due to Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib shall henceforth be waived." Now, Al-Abbas here is his uncle, and he used to practice such transactions. Now, this is as a message for the whole society. In Islam, usury, charging interest, abusing poor people is forbidden. So before talking about any other precepts or principles or values, first and foremost, there must be social justice. There must be consideration of the poor, and abusing the need of the poor, abusing people with interest. Today, it's funny how these days we're talking about credit cards and interest, and how banks, are abusing the poor, and how all these things are coming up in our world today, our reality. These are things that the Prophet emphasized in his very principle, main message on that day. And then he goes, after talking about the principle, of course, of social equity, then he says, every right arising out of homicide in pre-Islamic days is henceforth waived. And the first such right I waive is that arising from the murder of Rabi'a ibn al-Harith. He was a relative of the Prophet. All mankind, the unbelievers, indulge in tampering with the calendar in order to make permissible that which Allah forbade, and to forbid that which Allah has made permissible. Of course, they had 4 months, holy months, Rajab, and of course Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram. And they used to play with the times. You break laws here and observe laws here. And of course, he said, this is finished. The laws of God are to be upheld all the time. And then, of course, he tells us here, with Allah, the months are 12, 4 of them are holy, 3 of these holy months are successive, and 1 occurs singly between the months of Jumada and Sha'ban. Of course, that is Rajab, as I mentioned earlier. And then he goes, he says, O people, beware of Satan, the devil, for the safety of your religion. He has lost all hope that he will ever be able to lead you astray in big things. So beware of following him in small things. Big things such as the worship of other than God, polytheism, worshiping stones, and those things that, of course, the Prophet Muhammad eradicated. Indeed, the Muslims never went back to worship the stones. However, they still have the problems between them of jealousy, hatred, and conflicts. These little things are used by Satan to split the people. And then the Prophet, peace be upon him, said out loud, O people, it is true that you have certain rights with regard to your women, but they also have rights over you. If they abide by your right, then to them belongs the right to be fed and clothed in kindness. Treat your women well and be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. And it is your right that they do not make friends with anyone of whom you do not approve, as well as never commit adultery. The Prophet, peace be upon him, took it upon himself to make it clear that day that women are partners and helpers, instead of the view that they were subjects and they were just nothing in the old cultures, including, of course, the pre-Islamic times. So Islam established the rights and emphasized to the point that women are helpers, are partners, are part of the society and the social fabric, and they have their saying. And that's why he made it clear out loud to all those thousands of people that they have rights as much as men have rights. And then he goes, O people, listen to me in earnest. Worship Allah. Say your 5 daily prayers. Fast during the month of Ramadan. And give the share of zakah in your wealth. Perform Hajj if you can afford to. Of course, if you can afford to, the Hajj is one of the pillars. So he's reminding people of the 5 pillars of Islam, very basic acts of worship, daily acts such as 5 prayers, and of course annual acts such as fasting the month of Ramadan and giving the poor due, zakat, and of course one in a lifetime, that is pilgrimage, Hajj. And then he tells us there's a beautiful message that the world needs to hear in our days. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor does a non-Arab have any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over a black, nor does a black have any superiority over a white, except by piety and good action. So the standard of goodness, not in the color, not in how we appear to people physically, how we are visible to others, but the superiority in the eyes of God is in piety and goodness and good actions. As we read in another hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, God does not look at your shapes and wealth, but he looks at your hearts and deeds. Then he says, learn that every Muslim is the brother of another Muslim, and that Muslims constitute one brotherhood. Nothing shall be legitimate to a Muslim that belongs to a fellow Muslim unless it was given freely and willingly. Do not therefore do injustice to yourselves. Well, what he wants to tell to the Muslim first, before you tell the world about the goodness and universality and the peace of Islam, practice yourselves the peace. Have peace among yourselves, you Muslims. Be respectful to one another. Do not gossip about one another. Do not break the laws. Do not take and abuse the rights of one another before you tell the world that Islam is a good message for them.